Hello again from my front porch. I was I'm chuckling because I want to talk about a topic that, for reasons that I'm not going to get into, has been on my mind and has become more prevalent on my mind right now. But I realize it's not just a recent occurrence. In fact, as I really was mulling this over, I realized this has been a lifelong issue for me. We all have our weak spots. We all have our things to work on. I remember, man, I don't know, I'll tell you, every year, every semester, my parents would go to conferences and they'd say, Paul is a great student to have in class. He's very eager. He's very active, but he needs to not talk so much. You can all see I've gotten over that. But seriously, what I wanted to talk about was the concept of patience. I have a lot of trouble with patience. In my more mature years, I think I'm getting better, but I'm still a long way from actually being able to be considered a patient person. And the problem is not just that I tend to be a high energy person at times. As I talked about in an episode a while back, sometimes you have to decompress. You can't be high energy all the time. But when I am on and when I'm charged up, certainly when I'm out in public or doing something, I can be quite high energy. I can be very gregarious. I can be very outgoing. And when I'm in that mindset, it's really hard to be patient too, because the energy level is way up here, and patience requires you to be willing to be down here. And you see, there's this gap here. But even when I'm not in that environment, one of the other issues that I have, and I say me because I'm sure there are plenty others who share this as well, but I'm only talking about myself right now. Yeah, that doesn't sound narcissistic at all. But one of the things that I know I have to deal with is when my brain processes something, some path, some decision, some idea, some direction for when I've processed this and this is what makes sense, and it seems like nobody is opposed to it. It seems like others are on board. Well, then I just want it to happen. I want it now. Now I partially blame my background as a journalist because as a journalist we all want to write the story and get it published and see our byline, and it feeds into that need for instant gratification kind of thing. Well, I could blame it on that, but I don't think that's where it comes from. I'm pretty sure I have always been that way. Again, it's one of those things that I think I've gotten better at as I've gotten older, that I've learned. Either I have learned how to be more patient, or, and I think this is probably more the case, I have learned when to be patient. There's a big difference because I still would struggle with being patient. However, when I understand this is a scenario where not being patient will be counterproductive. Not being patient very likely will not have the result that I'm hoping for. Pushing, trying to force something to happen when it's not ready to happen is going to run the wrong way. And so, because of the context, Paul, you need to be patient. It's like, why is that so hard? Because it's one of the 7 biblical virtues that we're supposed to pursue. There's faith, hope, love, humility, compassion, gentleness, kindness, patience, forgiveness. Oh, I guess that's 9. Did I say 7? Paul can't count either. But patience is in that list. And so if it's a list of the biblical virtues, well, this should be something we're all able to do, right? No, because when you really stop and think about it, nothing on that list is easy. Especially if you're not in the right frame of mind. Because you say, oh, no, I'm a gentle person. Oh, I'm a kind person. Oh, I'm very humble. Yeah, when things are going good. But when you're stressed, when life has thrown you a massive curveball that you weren't prepared for, when situations aren't going the way they're supposed to go, almost everything on that list can easily go out the window in any given circumstance. So it's not surprising that patience, while it is a virtue, is tough to achieve and stay in. And so I'm not criticizing anybody for not being patient, mostly because then I'd have to criticize myself. But it is a lesson painfully that I've had to learn. And so I'm imparting this bit of wisdom. This is, the old guy telling the young bucks, this is or whatever. Or maybe it's the not so old guy telling even older guys, whoever the case may be. But I think about it in work situations. There are things that I had wanted to do in the job I'm in right now that didn't come to fruition, or at least didn't come to fruition as quickly as I had wanted. In hindsight, I can look back and recognize that had we done it on the timeline I wanted, it probably wouldn't have worked. It likely would not have even been ready. We would have rolled something out incomplete. But it also stands out to me in terms of relationships that I've had. And relationships are the kind of thing. I don't know if you want to call it a Zen mindset or what, but I really have, and I've alluded to this before, but I've really come to the belief that everything happens for a reason. Now, sometimes the reason is because you were stupid and now you're paying the price. That's not what I'm talking about. But I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and that includes relationships. That we cross paths with people for a reason. We don't know for sure what that reason is, and it may seem like, well, we're supposed to be in a relationship. This is supposed to just happen, and maybe not today. The only way we know for sure is if we show patience. Because if you try to force something like a relationship, it's not going to work. And plus, if it's not working, you need to let it go. You just recognize that things happen for a reason, and that wasn't the reason for this. But if there is the potential, but it's not happening as fast as you want it to, that doesn't mean it's not happening. Doesn't mean it's not going to ultimately develop. Just means you got to have patience. That's another context in which I have not always... There are some painful lessons, yes. Oh... But seriously, this concept of patience is one that I just, it has really, again, I'm not wanting to get into the details of, but in the last just few days, the concept of being patient has really just drilled into me. And it's challenging because you want stuff to happen. Accepting that not everything is going to happen when we want it to can be tough. And sometimes when this is a weird segue, weird analogy, I suppose, but the concept of patience really takes fruition in my head with the 7-second rule. We as a training, as a person that facilitates training, as an instructor, many of us know what we practice the 7-second rule. The 7-second rule simply is silence for 7 seconds. You say, all right, does anybody have any questions? That's 7 seconds. Now, you saw me counting it off, so you knew what I was doing. But if I did that below the camera, you wouldn't have known. You just saw me looking at you. Does anybody have any questions? All right, well, if there are no questions, we can see that's an instructor technique. Because if I say, are there any questions? All right, I see none. We'll move on. I move way too fast. See, it takes time for the other person to process that I have allowed them to ask a question and for them to even think, what is the question that I want to ask? And so I have to give time for that. Plus, that 7 seconds puts pressure. People don't like silence. They don't like that. It unnerves them. And so, more often than not, somebody is going to speak up to break that silence because they just can't take it. And so that's an example of where I, as the instructor, even though I want to move on with the lesson, I have to practice patience. And I can do that. I haven't had trouble doing that, but that's because I'm strategically patient. Apparently I need to be more strategically patient on a personal level too. But honestly, patience is a virtue. And not only that, it's just a good thing. Because if you practice patience, along with patience comes peace of mind. Because when we can honestly be patient, let things play out at their own speed, allow something to come to fruition as it's supposed to, not based on our pushing. When we are able to allow that to happen, that also means we have developed a sense of peace about this piece, the different spelling, this piece of it, and the overall picture. And when we have that level of peace, then the anxiety, the stress, the frustration, the unknowing, the questioning, the what ifs doesn't necessarily go away, but it's greatly reduced. Because that patience leads to that peace, which, at least for me, gives my brain and my heart and my soul, my body, a rest. Because otherwise, those things can get all tied up in knots. But being patient, that's the key. Practicing patience, that's hard. Maybe for some of you it comes easy. Good for you. But for the rest of us normal people, it's a challenge. But as I said, there have been some recent events that have prompted me to recognize I need to practice a lot more patience. And I need to get comfortable with that. I need to get good. I need to get, I can't even think of the word. I need to get more experienced with that. That's not what I was looking for. Anyway, I just need to get better at patience. I know that. And the situations have illustrated that for me. So that's my mission, to improve in that area and to reap the rewards of doing so. Peace of mind, peace of heart, peace of soul, peace of body, peace of situations. I believe it. All right. Well, with that deep philosophical thought, rah, I'm going to let y'all go. And I'll see you next time from my front porch.